Good evening. The rumors about Keir Starmer and the Labour Party cancelling local elections in England aren't true. There's no official confirmation of such plans. The term K-Starmer dictatorship is just a critical way of describing his leadership style, but it's not an official label. Always check trusted sources for the latest updates. Before we dive in, please like and subscribe. Now look at this.
Why aren't they all going ahead?
And I would say, even before the white paper has been published, maybe there's a
problem with the line. Why aren't they going ahead, Minister?
Well, at the moment, the assumption is that elections are going ahead. However, it's usual in a process of reorganisation that when a council makes a request for reorganisation, that if there are elections taking place to a council that it essentially won't exist within the term of those elections, then you hold off the elections and you elect to a shadow body, and the shadow body basically is a form of the new councils that will follow.
It seems we have confirmation that some local elections, scheduled for May next year, might now be delayed until 2027. Labour has argued that this is necessary due to restructuring of councils, with some potentially being dissolved. However, many are skeptical of this reasoning. The local elections were expected to serve as a referendum on Keir Starmer's government, and given his current approval rating of around -61, Labour is concerned about a potential landslide defeat. This sharp decline in Starmer's popularity is visible in recent graphs, showing his approval ratings plummeting fast, almost like the Titanic sinking. Labour's Angela Rayner has attempted to put a positive spin on the situation, claiming the delay is part of a broader plan for devolution, a way of giving more power back to local communities. However, this explanation hasn't been well received, with Reform MP Rupert Lowe pointing out the obvious. You don't return power to communities by cancelling elections. This situation is especially rich, considering Labour's own criticisms of other political figures. Over the weekend, Labour's Baroness Harriet Harman was quick to label Nigel Farage and Reform as a threat to democracy, making the timing of Labour's own actions appear somewhat hypocritical.
Well, I think people should be very concerned about Reform because they're not just a threat to individual parties, but I actually think they're a threat to democracy because they are offering easy answers.
The Labour government. Now, remember when Keir Starmer said this.
It's right that Parliament has the first say. It's right that Parliament has the first say. But if we need to break the impasse, our options must include campaigning for a public vote, and nobody is ruling out Remain as an option.
Carol, is he behaving a bit like a dictator?
Oh my God, yeah, this is what happens in dictatorships. He's acting like, a third world dictator. It's incredible because dictators are very strong people, and he's not at all. He literally can't. Reform, as you said, are surging ahead. Reform now has 100,000 members in this country. The Labour Party has 366,000, so that gives you an idea of how much the support is surging for him. And I think, Harriet Harman at the weekend, that is pot calling the kettle black here. She said Reform is a threat to democracy. What the Labour Party do now is a huge threat to democracy. And interesting, a couple of days before that, Harman had been on another show and she had praised Reform and said they were surging ahead and were actually a danger to Labour. And that is absolutely true. And Labour have seen this. They know what's happening. The Reform Party is what happens in a country where the ruling party is not listening to the needs and the wants of the electorate. And you pointed out the most unpopular Prime Minister in modern historic times. So, yes, I think, when you have a government, this is a dangerous government, and when you have a government that actually can't rule the country, but is going to stop the people who can, we shouldn't be having it.
Benjamin, Keir Starmer's getting the kind of spanking you normally have to pay for in Soho, and he doesn't like it. That's why he's trying to avoid an election.
Yeah, I think people that have come to these conclusions have been on the Christmas sherry early. The idea that it's like a dictator, I don't remember Putin cancelling a few district council elections.
If Putin did this, but it's interesting, because I nearly put a line in my monologue, actually, about this. If Putin did this, they'd be all over it like a rash. But it's actually Keir Starmer doing it.
This is actually called gerrymandering. This is what we used to call gerrymandering, where you manipulate boundaries to get the vote you want.
Well, the last Tory government know about that because they tried to cut the number of MPs to make it impossible for a Labour government to get in. But, this is just total nonsense. What you've got here is, 5 district councils being redrawn in 5 areas of the country so that you can save £2 billion of public money. Now, it's the case that whenever you redraw local authority boundaries,
let us know your thoughts in the comments below. The delay of some crucial local elections, initially set for May 2025, has become a major political flashpoint, with allegations of a power grab and threats to democracy. It seems these elections might now be postponed until 2026 or even 2027. This development has sparked a fiery response from Nigel Farage, who is accusing Labour of undermining democratic processes. He claims that this move is part of a broader effort to hold on to power as Reform UK, the rising political force led by Farage, gains momentum. According to Farage, Labour and the Conservatives' long-standing dominance of British politics is unraveling, and they are terrified of the reckoning that could come in the elections. Labour's attempt to explain the delay centres around local councils undergoing restructuring. Some might be merged, reformed, or even abolished entirely. Local government minister Jim McMahon cited these changes as the reason for postponing the elections until the new structures are finalised. Key battleground areas like Essex, Kent, and Sussex, which have become critical for Reform UK, are directly affected by these shifts. However, Farage is not convinced by this reasoning. He argues that the real motive behind the delay is to prevent elections in areas where Reform UK is gaining traction. Farage blasted Labour, accusing them of importing tactics from the US Democrats, labeling opponents as a threat to democracy while undermining democratic processes themselves. Farage's sharp response highlights the growing tensions as political forces in the UK continue to clash over the future of local governance and the impact on democracy. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. Take care of yourself and your family. Goodbye.